I'm doing a little video recap of a session of Castles and Crusades that we played today. This is session 2 of the campaign. I had 3 players, one for the first time of the session, and the other 2 had played in the previous session or some one-off sessions that we did to get started. So the party started out in their hometown of Arden, and it started in a tavern, common fantasy trope, and things were going well. They were talking about future possible adventures that they could go on when they were alerted that there was a fire in the town, and fire in town is bad, so they rushed out to help, and they left, found a home on fire, and were instrumental in rescuing the family inside. They no sooner got that taken care of when another fire broke out, was spotted in town, and they rushed to help take care of that one. And it was one of the town storehouses was on fire with their winter stores, so they quickly got that under control. After doing so, they investigated the actual sources of the fire and found them to be set. And they also found tracks leading to the houses that were on fire. They were approached by the chieftain of the town, a guy named Connell Mormack, and he asked them to look into this further, which they did. And the tracks led to an abandoned house, and in the basement of the abandoned house, which is here, they found a group of kobolds. They had never faced kobolds before, but there was 4 of them. One of them fled into this tunnel below, this hole, and they slayed the other 3. And after doing so, they decided, well, we got to figure out what's down there, so they went down the tunnel. They went down this tunnel, made their way through here. The party dwarf discovered a trap that the kobolds had set, a little pit trap there, and they were able to bypass that, and they got into this room here and had a battle with a few more kobolds. They did some exploration, found some nesting areas where the kobolds would take their rests and their equipment to mine the tunnels, and then they found a cavern over here that opened up and to a pool of water, a very deep pool of water. With the dwarf's ability, they were able to determine that some of these tunnels were worked, but they're also not worked by tools, which kind of put them on edge a little bit. I'm trying to figure out what might have dug those tunnels. There was some speculation about it. It eventually led to them coming all the way back around into this area in a much larger chamber. And in it, they found clutches of eggs that they couldn't identify. And before they got too involved in trying to identify it, they felt the ground begin to shake, and a ant keg came up out of the ground to protect its clutch of eggs. So they quickly joined in battle. We had Lork, the half-orc ranger, rushed into a fight. We had Rothgar, the rogue, sneaking around the back for the classic backstab. We had, oh, this guy wasn't even in it. Oops, sorry. There was Aiden, the cleric, who actually got pretty banged up in previous kobold fights, so he kind of hung back with a couple spells left in case anybody needed healing. Lork did a lot of battle. Our dwarven druid, Riska Earthshade, he started off a little rough in that combat with a fumble, got tangled up in his bow and lost a round of action, but he ended up coming out of that and charging in to help. And it was a pretty dangerous fight, their first level, and so they threw some good rolls and there was even, I believe, a critical in that fight that did a lot of damage to the Ankeg. Wasn't there, and they eventually, during the battle actually, the Ankeg used its acid breath when it got backstabbed by Rothgar and sprayed this area here, which helped support the tunnel and collapse it down. So a couple like of the characters like Riska and Rothgar got partially buried in sand, so it didn't do any damage. It just restricted their movement. They were kind of stuck, but at that point, they were pretty much able to finish it off. From there, they went on to collect a couple of the eggs to bring back to Chief Mormac to show him what's going on down under here. And they brought one back to one of the druids in town to kind of examine. They did a little bit of more exploration afterwards, and back to this cavern. They were really curious about it, so they went up to this raised area, and looking over here, they saw a ledge with several little boats, little tiny woven reed boats that they were curious about. So Rothgar swam over there, found an old campsite, and where the water drains in, and he could see that there's a tunnel, a passage that the kobold was using from there to get into this area. So they returned to town, reported their findings to the chieftain of the town, and he gave them the task of further exploring that tunnel over there to see if there was any further threats to Arden. And according to the after action of the game, they are going to follow up on that. So that will be their next quest, to further explore the tunnels and caverns beneath the town of Arden. Played using Castles and Crusades. These homage covers to 1E AD&D, which are awesome. Great game. Everybody had a good time, and my player that it was his first session of this campaign. He and I grew up together playing 1E AD&D, and he really liked the rule set. So we're all pretty much, except for one of my players coming off some lengthy 5th edition D&D. So we're looking for a change, and we think we found it with Castles and Crusades. So far, so good. Thanks for watching.